Welcome everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. It's great to have you all here with me. My name is Mr. Regis and I will be your host for the June edition of the TKF Seminar Series. Before we get to the introductions, I want to thank all of the many TKF educational streamers, their supporters, their viewers, and especially those who have put so much work into this committee's organization and management over the course of the 7 or so years of this group's life. And I want to take this opportunity to introduce you all to the Knowledge Fellowship if you are not familiar with it. Throughout all of that time, TKF has worked in a supportive role to promote educational content and streamers. And in this event, which we'll dive into shortly, this will spotlight a very important segment of the streaming landscape. The Knowledge Fellowship is a community of educational live streamers and viewers with an interest in sharing and obtaining free, credible, evidence-based information through live streams. It's a collection of educational content creators, all kinds of people who use the vehicle of live streaming to deliver meaningful content. Legitimate educational content from people with educational or experiential subject matter expertise, not just opinions and influence. TKF educators use their expertise to provide free information and resources on a wide variety of subjects. Their backgrounds are diverse, with credentials or experience that give them valuable knowledge that they've chosen to share with others. In pursuit of equitable learning, viewers from all backgrounds and education levels are invited to engage with TKF streamers. TKF actually includes over 100 affiliated educational streamers across dozens of different subject areas or specialities. If you're interested in content that is interactive, that makes you think, that teaches you something new, allows you to participate in some meaningful conversations about the most interesting stuff in the world, there's a TKF streamer, or 2, or 10, that's talking about something you might want to see live at any given time. Some of the many subject areas that TKF streamers study or work in include aerospace. If you're interested in rocketry, aeronautics, spaceflight, streamers like Das Valdez, who also manages live stream operations for NASA Spaceflight LLC. Geoscience. You can learn about geology, volcanoes, minerals, paleontology. Streamers like VolcanoDoc, a volcanology PhD who will be our guest in an upcoming session of the seminar series. Lots of streamers in the life sciences, running the gamut of topics like wildlife, cancer research, birding, like Andrew Holding, an award-winning science communicator and cancer researcher. Homozygote, focused on molecular biology, who helps translate complex science topics into digestible information for viewers as well as covering science news. And Science streams, a husband and wife team of biology PhDs and Twitch ambassadors covering topics ranging from ants to epigenetics. Math and econ, everyone's favorite topics. You can learn and ask questions about all kinds of math topics from streamers like Actual Education, which is a nonprofit where you can get free help with your classes. And Penn Center, fantastic math streamer who also streams Ocarina of Time. Many streamers in the field of physics and astronomy, which includes one of our streamers that will be our guest today, like Mahoodles, who talked about astrobiology with us in the first seminar series last month. Nerduino, an astronomer and former NASA guy who streams about tech and does live astronomy from his own backyard observatory, along with doing Lego builds. You can also learn about practical crafts, things that you yourself can do with your hands and learn about. Cooking Without Looking, who is a blind streamer, does live cooking streams, learning and sharing the cooking experience. Pottery Dojo, who streams pottery making and sculptures. Practical Technology is something you can also learn about, like from Notes and Volts, who builds electronic circuits that make noise, as they put it, or MIDI, synth, that kind of thing. Quite a few streamers in the programming field, as you might imagine. All different kinds of different languages, different subjects within programming that you can learn about. Andy Lippy teaches all about OBS and streaming software if you yourself are a streamer and interested in learning more. Professor Ashley is a professor of games user research and game design who streams game analysis. The social sciences as well, ranging from law to therapy and counseling. You can learn about languages from Lotteglotz, who is learning dozens of different languages themselves. Sophie Quests streams all about history through the lens of games that teach about history. And Ask a Scientist Gaming, which, as you might imagine from the title of their streams, you can just ask scientists about topics in their streams. So like I said, there is always someone streaming something on the TKF stream team that you might learn something from. So if you're looking for something different rather than just entertainment, although most of us also do something that is very entertaining, like games. If you're looking for something that isn't just TikTok or, content slop, you can find something that is educational, substantive, and you can learn a lot. If you're interested in becoming a part of the Knowledge Fellowship, it's open to anyone who wants to be a part of it. You can join our Discord. One of our mods will get a link into the chat now. Anyone is welcome to join. A viewer, a streamer, if you're interested in streaming educational content, if you just stream regular content. If you want to join the TKF team as a streamer, one of our affiliated streamers, it's an easy to fill out application that you can find in that Discord, and we'll check you out and see if you might be a great fit for our team. But that is what the Knowledge Fellowship is all about. That's who we are. With that, though, we want to bring in our guest presenter. Today, we will be joined by StarStryder, Dr. Pamela L. She's a senior education and communication specialist for the Planetary Science Institute, has been a part of popularizing science and education outreach in the streaming space, and is a director of CosmoQuest, a community of citizen scientists and astronomers engaging the public in science and astronomy, along with being a researcher in galactic astronomy. There's so much more that I could say, but let's just bring on our guest. Thank you so much for joining us. Hello.
Hello. That was a wonderful introduction. Thank you so much. I am enjoying the chat profusely. I can't tell you what science is safe to lick. Just do not lick the astronomy. That's a really good way to become plasma.
Yeah, and you want to stay in one of the 3 traditional states of matter, typically.
Generally, although I don't think I want to become a gas or a liquid anytime soon. I mean, I'm largely liquid already, but I don't want to become more liquefied, and I really don't want to become a gas.
No. Perhaps if I could become one of those shape-shifting materials and I could do whatever I wanted, that would be great, but I will take my current homogeneous or heterogeneous form of mix of different chemicals and elements. Yeah, I don't need any more gas in my life either. So it's great to have you with us, and I'm so glad that you were able to take time to be a part of this series. First, though, you wear a lot of hats, and it began with astronomy. Was that something you always wanted to do? Was it something you knew you always wanted to do from the time you were a little kid?
I've been interested in astronomy pretty much forever because of science fiction. I made my way into astronomy trying to understand all of these different things and these different shows I was watching on TV. One of the more ludicrous rabbit holes, was Battlestar Galactica, the original 1970s version, because I am old. They have a whole bunch of characters, just like the current one, that have names like Apollo, Athena, Cassiopeia, and these names you could trace back to Greek gods. And then I realized, wait, that gets you to constellations. And so I went down as a small, nerdy child, the rabbit hole of first reading everything there was to find, not even all the age appropriate. I just kept going down rabbit holes I probably shouldn't have. Reading all I could about Greek gods, and then started down the constellations, and then started down the astronomy. And I occasionally attempted to detour myself because they tell you that no one can go into astronomy. It's very, very difficult. And so I initially thought I'll do something that is appropriate for someone like me, a girl. And I started out in international studies, and then I realized I hate understanding economics. I got a very good laugh when you said our favorite topics, mathematics and economics. And I prefer understanding astrophysics and doing nuclear synthesis equations than understanding what makes a capitalism work.
Yeah, I that just makes me think of that fantastic meme where it's a researcher who says, we taught chimpanzee to understand the median American voter, and the chimpanzee broke out of the room or something like that. Yeah, I don't know if I want to understand too much about economics and how it works, but understanding the universe, that's pretty awesome. And I have to ask, since you talked about science fiction getting you into this? Star Trek or Star Wars?
I want Star Trek, but let's face it, we live in Star Wars, so learn what you can. My current quote is, of course I'm not going to screw it up because I'm streaming, of course. My allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy, which is an Obi-Wan quote.
Yes. Yeah, I think we are a little bit more Andor than we are the Federation right now, unfortunately.
Yeah. Especially
in terms
California
of the
right
go
now.
ahead. Yeah.
It's just this moment in time. We are watching amazing protests take place through social media today. This is getting recorded on June 7th. And I never thought I'd be seeing these kinds of revolutions against federal forces in our country. We definitely live in Andor, and it turns out the science fiction is always a reflection of the times we live in, and we don't always listen. But now is the time to learn and to stand up, and women belong in the revolution.
Absolutely. That the fact that it is, 2025, maybe we are living a little bit of Star Trek because maybe we are in the Bell Riots instead. Maybe we are in Star Trek. We're just behind the times. I mean, the Bell Riots were supposed to be 2024, so maybe we're just in a pre-Star Trek period. And maybe it's also good that you didn't get into the rabbit holes of content and such for fandom of Battlestar Galactica. Now, when there is the internet, maybe it's best that it happened, back in the pre-internet
70s,
days.
80s.
Yeah.
I got into it in the 80s. I was not TV literate or able to read in the 70s. I'm not that old.
Yeah. And that is a great quote. Science fiction is a reflection of the times we live in. And I think it stands true that people think dystopias in science fiction are a portrayal of something that might happen. They're just a reflection of the way things are now.
Yeah.
In the underlying causes. But lastly, on that subject, who wins, Star Trek or Star Wars? Who wins, Empire or Federation?
I think that they're both constantly doing the ups and downs. We see that in Picard, where even the Federation faltered. We see that in Discovery, where the Federation had its moments where it went astray and its moments where it found itself again. Just as in the Star Wars series, we see the Republic rising and falling in its own cycles. Human beings are incapable of stagnation is one of the things we've learned. As soon as we get it good, to use the words of Cory Doctorow, and shitification begins, where things that were created following ideals, following passions, following love, suddenly start to follow profitability. And greed always seems to rise back up. And because of these factors, every good thing will eventually fall apart unless we are vigilant. We must fight for our freedoms. We must fight for the things we care about. It's a truth that history keeps showing us over and over again.
That stagnation's a very good point. I mean, that's basically why the Jedi fell and why the Empire was able to rise, that stagnation. And in shitification, unfortunately, that everything has to become profitable is a big problem for science now. Everything has to be profitable. The research has to be of some financial benefit rather than being of human benefit. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. It's a complicated time. We are all currently trying to figure out how to reinvent ourselves in the space sciences field. Those of us that study other worlds, that study outside of our solar system, we don't have the standard return on investment that venture capitalists are normally looking for. But when you look back at where does the money get spent for space exploration, it gets spent domestically. when you spend money on science, you are spending money to get high-speed infrastructure into random places like mountaintops. You are developing new technologies. The first petaflop computer was developed to do the dynamics of globular clusters. Some of the biggest simulations were developed to simulate our universe, and these are the same technologies that then with our image processing that gets turned around and used in medical image processing. Everything we do has the ability to improve things beyond just astronomy, just space science. But that's not how your standard venture capitalist, and let's face it, in a year or two, they're going to be the only ones funding science anymore. They're looking more for what is the equity I can get in this company? What is the thing I will get that will bring me money directly, not what is the societal return on investment. It's going to be a weird
relevant
time. Yeah.
I think it was just yesterday they were talking about cutting a study for legumes and lentil research, because that's easy to look at and the public will think, well, that's weird. Why do that? Studying how to grow more crops better in less space, that's actually pretty freaking important. That would be great if we could learn more about that. The study that I always hear people like, a Ted Cruz bring up is they studied shrimps on treadmills. Well, if you look at that, what that study is, people who, read studies, well, they were actually testing how much pollutants in a water system that the local flora and fauna can survive before they start to suffer physical damage. Actually pretty important for us to understand for our water table and for the conservation and, harvesting shrimp. That would actually be great. If it was called a study on that, maybe it would be a little bit easier to defend rather than calling your study legumes and lentils feasibility or something. Maybe we have to do what politicians do with bills and say, this is the great bill for protecting old people and kids. That would probably cuts funding for something. Call your study growing more beans better or something. Maybe that's a bit of a science communication issue.
It's entirely true. Back when I was in graduate school, I was at the University of Texas, and a group of our galaxy astronomers put together a project called the Hubble-Eberly Telescope Echo Mapping Project with the acronym HEMP, and it got called up as perhaps something that should not be funded because of the hemp reference. And it was using the variations in light from accretion disks around black holes to map the insides of active galactic nuclei. I won't speak to the recreational habits of any scientist, but the science itself had nothing to do with hemp. It was just, we have to amuse ourselves sometimes, and astronomers are not known for our ability to name things. We really aren't.
No, I mean, like you mentioned, the ancient Greeks, they were a little bit more creative in naming things. I think that's maybe they may need to do a little bit more recreational use of things to help their creativity. I don't know. Maybe Carl Sagan had it right. I don't know.
He definitely did.
In terms of science communication, and that's something else that we can talk about. You've appeared on panels. You've been on shows, Discovery and History Channel type shows. Panels with figures like Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson. What do you think is the overlap with conventions like TwitchCon or gaming conventions, anime conventions, that kind of thing, and science conventions, the fan base that sort of overlaps there? It does seem like there is some.
It turns out that there's a huge overlap between people that are into science fiction, people that are into the facts behind that fiction, and people that are into skeptical thinking. And so what you'll find as you go from conferences dedicated to skepticism and having laws based on science and things like that, medicine is based on research, and you go to science fiction conventions, the PhDs that show up at all of these different events are quite often the exact same people, just scattered in slightly different concentrations. And it was really amazing over the years to get to see, well, in many cases, people I became friends with because we kept showing up at the same events and got to see each other in these really weird contexts, and that's just awesome. But then there was the year where I saw Neil deGrasse Tyson give the exact same talk, in 4 completely different venues, and it only really worked in one of those 4 venues. It was okay enough in the other 3, but so sometimes you have to laugh at your peers.
Yeah, we can't be perfect all the time. I mean,
No.
not even me. That does kind of remind me how there's the jokes of behind every furry is a PhD or something like that, or you can't have a plane full of furries. Yeah. If a plane crashed with a group of furries going to a convention on it, the infrastructure of IT would collapse or something like that.
Yes.
It does seem to be a lot of overlap with fandoms and interests in fantasy and science fiction with science and research.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, we get to see the things we're discovering as graphs and tables and black and white images that are highly pixelated with faint fuzzy dots turned into entire civilizations that are being explored when we look at science fiction. Dr. Erin Mack, who's one of the streamers you mentioned, she's a PhD astrophysicist, and she worked on gravitational waves, and now she works for Star Trek, making sure that their science is more correct than less correct, and getting to influence what science people get to see humans being a part of. And there's something amazing about getting to see these ideas we work with every day, and sometimes just see as math and equations that are all Greek letters, and then to see this represented in movies like Interstellar as this amazing graphic that predated anything done by the Event Horizon Telescope is just this fabulous moment of, I actually understand that. They got that right, and this is all amazing. And so we get reconnected to the things that we're studying when the people that we're reading get the science right. We all read Andrew Ware's The Martian and cheered on how, other than the density of the air on Mars and the ability of wind to do damaging things, other than that, he did a really good job. Bobiverse has done a really good job on different things. All these different books you stumble through. Even John Scalzi's, forget the name of it, he has a new book that just came out where the thing that happens at the beginning that absolutely could not happen is the moon became cheese. And if you accept the premise that one day the moon spontaneously became cheese, everything that flows downstream from that, the science is right, and it gets those of us who understand the science thinking about our stuff in new and creative ways, and that's just fun, and we don't get that very often. So this interplay between science and science fiction is invigorating. And then the skeptical thought community, they're out there fighting for the things that we're passionate about. Everything from, yes, one should get vaccines, it's actually important, to so many other factors, especially involving medical devices and just what we're doing to our environment. Anyone who understands climate change, I'm with you. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry we understand it. Now it's up to us to try and influence the behavior of governments that have the power to actually influence the behavior of the companies that are the leading impactors to what we're doing to our planet. So yeah, it makes sense that we find each other at the same places over and over again.
It does seem like there's some personality overlap, and I can certainly speak to some of my experience in trying to communicate things about vaccines. I've given classes on flu shots and the importance of getting flu shots, and on fad supplementation diets and stuff like that. That, again, we talked a little bit about earlier about science and fun always needs to turn a profit. a company sees one study and says, oh, this supplement does this, I'm going to run with it and sell it, and it doesn't do anything. And that can be hard to communicate because the public has this perception of just give me the simplest explanation. They don't really understand that you need solid research, you need more than one study, you need a body of research that doesn't just conform to your preconceived notions. This study said that a vaccine was harmful. Well, that's one data point in a galaxy of research that's been done for generations. But thankfully, there is a group of people, a personality type that is interested in facts and information and wanting to have a science-based, research-based decisions rather than the emotional decisions we're making now. But I guess lastly on that point, talking about the communication of science in panels and such, there can be, I think as we've seen, some difficulty in balancing the celebrity aspect of science research, science communication, and the positive benefit they have in popularizing it, getting people interested, and then sort of cult of personality, cult of celebrity, and sometimes they're not always as, experiential or credentialed as you might want them to be. How do you think people should walk that line? Because you want to be out there and popularizing it, but
one of the things that I find deeply frustrating is there are people out there that did amazing things once upon a time, long, long ago, in a galaxy we unfortunately live in. And then they stopped learning new things. And it gets reflected in how they're popularizing science. You have to stay up to date. You have to stay passionate. We also see, and everyone's going to know exactly who I'm talking about if you're on social media, there are people out there that take the joy out of science because instead of saying what if, instead of saying, hey, isn't this cool, they're always out there saying, well, actually. And it turns out mansplaining science does not actually get people excited about science.
no.
It just makes you look pompous and and so I do my best to constantly be reading, to constantly be learning new things, and to take the approach of what if, to take the approach of let's find the joy in this stuff. And I think that's a way of making it contagious. And Adam Savage is someone I look to as inspiration for this. He's always out there from Mythbusters. He's always out there in his lab, trying new things, playing with new things. And he makes it play. And that is how we get people to want to spend their spare time learning and doing science and engineering and technology related things that keep their brains active, that keep them learning. I don't want to be the little person who's turning to a teenager and saying, take my technology and do it for me. I want to be the little old person who's like fixing everyone else's tech still. That's apparently my lot in life. It's what I do today. But I want to keep that, admittedly super annoying, keep that I'm always on the edge, always learning, always playing, always seeing what is possible role in science communications and science consumption, and they have to go together.
I think it also makes those people, of course, more likely to support the sciences and vote in favor of the sciences. The same is true with the arts. There's a similar backlash publicly against arts funding. And me being in health, it's like the first things that get cut: arts, physical education, health education. People don't think that. I hate that joke about the recorder. What did this teach me? The plastic flute thing recorder. What was this supposed to teach me in class? It wasn't supposed to make you a musician. Learning about music and arts teaches you numbers. It teaches you math and patterns. Teaches you dexterity and creativity. Learning science. The importance of practice and discipline. Yes. Yeah. And not teaching. I hate the thing going around now is for colleges. I don't want to do these electives. I don't want to do these general eds. I'm going into, business. Why do I need to know biology? Because it helps you understand the world. You understand life better. You'll be a better consumer of any kind of product. You'll be a better consumer of your own food, of media, if you understand how the universe works. But there are forces out there that don't want people to understand how the world works.
No, because it's not economically beneficial for us to understand and question.
No.
It's at the end of the day, we always have to follow the money. We have to figure out what is the motivation for someone to make the choice they have made. And I wish there were better answers most of the time.
But you are doing a great deal of work to try and help that with citizen science. So what are you currently doing right now? What's up for you right now in your streaming, in your plans? What do you have coming up for the future?
I am this close. And in fact, we can preview it if you have the ability to bring it up.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's bring that up.
Yeah, so this is World Mappers. This is the overly wordy, it's still in beta, everything's slightly broken page. Where if you go ahead and click that login button in the upper right, you can just use whatever account you want to log in. It uses stuff and things. Yeah, any of those should work. Yeah, sorry, should have warned you. Should have had you log in beforehand. And yeah, you just have to agree to things. So click yes. And you don't have to fill any of that out. It's optional. Now, if you click on Mars Mosaic at the top, we have 2 different projects coming. And the first one is weird to explain and more important than it seems rational. There is a camera on Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter called it's the context camera. It has a fancier name than that. Everyone just writes CTX and refers to it as the context camera. It has taken global views of Mars across multiple years, across multiple seasons, and we don't have a good algorithm for taking all those myriad images it's taken and mosaicing them together to allow us to do solid science of where all those images overlap so that we can start to find the new craters. We can find the seasonal changes in the surface, all these different things. And so I'm working with a team of researchers that has developed that new and improved algorithm, but it still periodically is like, no, I will not align your images, just like Photoshop periodically won't, or whatever image mosaicing software you're using just sometimes is like, no, I do not know how to do my job. And so we need human beings to go through and help us figure out where these things actually do and don't line up. And we can't do it with AI because the surface of Mars is highly varied. And in this default view that's up on the screen right now, you can see the 2 things that we're comparing. So there's the raw, this is what NASA would feed out sub-image. And then there's the stuff produced by our algorithm, which has to have pixel perfect alignment or we start to lose track of where stuff is on Mars. So it's super important that these images exactly line up. And so we allow you to look at a difference image, which is where you subtract those 2 images, and wherever they're different, it appears as white. There's an absolute value sign involved. Now, you'd think just have AI count how many white pixels there are. Well, the problem is you can have 2 images that are just like a fraction of a pixel off, but because they're covered in dunes and craters and boulders and rocks, that fraction of a pixel ends up with a whole lot of white in the difference image. But if you have a smooth plane with one rock and it's super misaligned so that that rock is like clearly super separated, that really misaligned image won't get flagged because the only thing producing any signs that the image aren't well aligned is that one lone boulder. So we need human beings to do this for us. And you can compare this in 3 different ways. So there's the difference image that you have on the screen. Directly under the image, there's some buttons. You can switch it to, are they working? I might have broken this. Yeah, I broke this right before we went live. I am very sorry. Okay, so you can't see another image. If you click one of the buttons, it will reload a new image. So just click anything on the bottom of the screen. Yeah. I was working on locking down my API today, and apparently what I actually did was I broke this in the process of locking down my API, and that's okay. It's in beta. It's not live yet until I fix it. There's a caching issue. So when it starts caching the images, it won't load things correctly. But in the future, this will allow you to look at the difference image that you saw. It will allow you to blink back and forth between the two images, and it will allow you to look at a version of the image that is mapped to blue and one that is mapped to yellow. And where those two line up perfectly, you get a standard black and white image, and where they don't, you get either blue or yellow fringes. So there's a bunch of different ways to look at it and figure out what does and doesn't work. Now, if you click where it says lunar melt, that's the other project we're getting ready to launch. And this one I don't think I could have broken. So here, it turns out that AI is really bad at mapping out features on the moon accurately. And we're trying to understand the geology of what happens when an asteroid hits the moon and melts the surface, and how that lunar melt sloshes around, sloshes up the outsides of craters, flows down the outsides of craters, all those different things. This is going to be a two-part app. I only have one of the parts mapped out of mapping tools set out so far. So if you click the circle in the upper left, the crater icon, this will all have tutorials before it goes live. So if you click in the center of one of the craters on the screen, those are the round-looking things, and drag out, you can actually start mapping features on the image. Is it not where? There it goes. Yeah. And so we're only mapping things of a given size. So it starts out showing you this red dashy line that's like, no, bad, do not map this, too tiny. And what we're doing, every bit of data is going to be completely used by our science team to understand the little lol crater, I can't say that quickly, region on the moon. And the data that we're acquiring will hopefully help us eventually be able to get machine learning algorithms to continue this mapping for us. The moon is huge. It would take tens of thousands of people years to map out the moon at the kind of resolution that's necessary to be able to have autonomous vehicles do things on the surface of the moon without fear for their own safety. So this is one of those times where we are trying to ethically acquire the data that's necessary with full consent given up front to be able to eventually do this with AI in the future. So this is what I'm working on. As soon as I fix my caching issue and get everything locked down so it's totally secure, this will be going live.
That is fantastic, and the use of the public's interest in science, because a lot of people aren't, but we talked about that subset of people who are very interested in these kinds of things. So I was thinking about the one that people were doing for cancer research, where the public could just go in and help, and it's better than playing Candy Crusher. It's a little bit more interesting than that. We had a comment in the chat about potentially approaching CCP Games about the Mapper project, because they've assisted similar projects by embedding them in EVE Online, which I've heard EVE Online players doing a whole lot of interesting things, things that are far beyond my level of gaming, but that's also something that's interesting, is the use of regular games doing science, and even I think of things like GeoGuessr, just getting people interested in geography.
Yeah. And languages and cultures. GeoGuessr requires you to both see how everyone's the same and yet have these little tiny differences that make us all stand out. And that dichotomy that comes up in GeoGuessr is just amazing.
oh my God, for some reason I can't remember the name of this person. The person who first discovered the Earth was round, an Egyptian scientist. He calculated it to within like 5% accuracy, and it was like 5,000 years ago.
Not Aristarchus. Maybe it was Aristarchus?
Eratosthenes?
Yes, that's who it is, Eratosthenes, with the well experiment. So I think they did this on equinox. One of the wells, the sun shone straight down into the well, and the other one, they could see the angle that the sun was at. And by measuring the distance between the two locations, north-south of each other, and then looking at the angle that the shadow was at for measurements made at high noon for both locations, if you know that the sun is shining, for something round, if you know the sun is shining straight down here, then this gives you the angle the sunlight is at. Well, over here, it's going to create a shadow with an angle because it's no longer going straight down towards the center. And that angle of the shadow allows you to calculate, once you know how many camels' days journey the two locations are apart, it allows you to, in terms of camel days of transport, measure the circumference of the planet. And he was accurate within how well you can measure camel travel. And that's just kind of awesome.
That was, and it came to mind because of this like citizen science thing. That's something that someone calculated with a well and a camel, basically, a stick and a shadow. You don't necessarily need to have a $1,000 telescope to assist in the advancement of human knowledge and development. You can do your little part, and it can still be, in things like this, fun and interesting to be a part of.
Yeah, there are so many ways for people to get involved in science. And the thing that makes the difference between someone who is participating in science and someone who just has a hobby is reporting out your data. If I went out tonight and I saw Orion is not still up. If I went out and I saw, I'm blanking on what a good star would be right now. Myra. I don't know if Myra's up right now. I'll go with Myra. If I went out and Myra was actually up tonight and I saw that it had exploded instead of just varying in brightness, and I kept that information to myself, I am not participating in science. It is only the people who see it, note it, report it, that are participating in science. And through interfaces like what we do with CosmoQuest, through projects like the American Association of Variable Star Observers, which do ask you to go out, look up, and report what you see, through all of these different things that say, join us, here's what to look for, here's how to share what you find, we're able to document our universe. The bird folks have been doing the most amazing job with this, as have the entomology people, the folks who study bugs, especially pollinators. They're out there documenting what they see, what bugs they see at what plants, and it's allowing us to catch on to how climate change is changing the populations of bugs, how things like lanternflies are invading the United States, stink bugs are invading the United States. You have to document it to be part of science. I see stink bugs all the time. I have never once documented them. That means I am not participating in stink bug science and documenting how invasive they are in southern Illinois. Armadillos in southern Illinois are documented by citizen scientists.
Yeah, and we can all be potential data recorders. We're all potential, cameras and sensors. We're all potential sources of new data. And as Misadventures in Astro puts in the chat, Adam Savage's great quote, the only difference between screwing around in science is writing it down.
Yeah, that's entirely true. And nowadays, with our cell phones, doorbell cams, and everything else, we are in a position to document things such as has never existed before. The full potential of this really became apparent back in 2015 when a very, thankfully, small asteroid decided to go boom over the city of Chelyabinsk in Russia. And it was the dash cams and security cams that were everywhere that allowed us to understand what exactly had happened over this city. And since then, there have been so many things, specifically meteor strikes, that we have been able to document this way. There was recently, for the first time ever, audio of an impacting small, what was left of a meteor hitting someone's front walk. We've gotten to the point that we now have video of meteor strike, and that is amazing.
Yeah, and that only accelerates our ability to predict, because as we get more and more data points, we know more and more about what to look for, where to look for it. And that citizen science is becoming very important, because as we talked about, funding for the national aggregation of information, national funding of science is in question at best.
Yeah.
So the more we get the public involved in doing that with their time, with their own energy and resources, that's going to be, I think, a huge stopgap, at least, until we can get things turned around for science funding.
It's a hard problem. It was actually during the first Trump administration that national policy changed. Forget exactly which congressional bill it was, to say that funding bodies such as the National Science Foundation and NASA are encouraged to preferentially fund projects that enable greater amounts of science to be done through public engagement, through crowdsourcing citizen science like projects, because it was seen as a cost savings. And so now, instead of having funding for students, we ask for volunteers. And then we're also getting to the point, unfortunately, where the funding for anything is going away. So we are now crowdfunding, crowdsourcing, and even open sourcing our projects to explore our universe. Please help any way possible. We are looking for your money, your programming skills, and your eyeballs. Other people have projects that will use your ears. I only use eyeballs. I am sorry. Yeah, it's bleak. But if we all work together, we can get it done. If we all lean in, no one will fall over. And the only way we're going to preserve science is for everybody to lean in.
We do all have our own responsibility to it, I would say. It just is, no one owns the air around you, because we all have a share in it. No one owns the future of science, because we all have a share in it, and we all need to. I mean, not everyone has a capacity to do very much. So there's money and time involved, but at the very least, you can vote for your perspective. You can advocate. And I do want to, since you've mentioned it, though, let's talk about CosmoQuest.
So CosmoQuest is a project I launched back in 2011 as a place for people to go and learn and do science. Normally, that citizen science project I just showed you would be part of CosmoQuest, but CosmoQuest is funded strictly through private donations and sponsorships, and is able to maintain diverse content and a very active queer community that is into space science. And because our citizen science efforts are federally funded, and I'm not going to get rid of one page of DEI content, CosmoQuest is funded by you. And we produce science news, we produce ways that you can learn astronomy through Astronomy Cast, and I will be bringing privately funded citizen science back to this site in time. It's just challenging, because when the DEI ban came out, we were this close from launching things on CosmoQuest, and I didn't want anyone to say, oh, you just rebranded CosmoQuest content, because that's an easy way to get yourself defunded and forced to delete DEI. So our new citizen science software, I have written in a fever dream since the election. So yeah, CosmoQuest is your place to learn and do science. We have an amazingly dynamic Discord community. We do a lot of Minecrafting. We're kind of crazy that way. It's where we all find our joy. We have a newsletter that comes out and we'll keep you up to date on everything that's going on, or join our Patreon as a free member and we'll send you regular updates. The people who are part of our Patreon as either free or paid members are really the people who get to know everything first. It's my passion.
So make sure, viewers, I almost said class, as I almost always call my viewers, go check out the link that you see there, cosmoquest.org.
And Broken Symmetry is one of the people in the chat right now who is always active in our stuff. It's good to see so many of our different people here. Broken Symmetry is simply the one who's led to the most screen captures with the comments he makes.
Fantastic. Very good. Great to have that engagement. And something I wanted to talk on especially was there's a lot of great podcast content here. What do you think about live streaming is beneficial as opposed to traditional video formats? Because I prefer to live stream things. It's great to go back and edit it so people can watch it later, but having that live in-person interactive element, can you talk about that from teaching science?
They're just different things. For a while, we attempted to do live recordings of our scripted podcast, and that was a total mistake. That was wrong. Do not do that. Doing scripted content on Twitch is dumb. Don't do it. So we have content that, like the Escape Velocity Space News episode that you see, the YouTube link there, we record those off air and edit them and post them. And this is the kind of content where you can say exactly what you want. You can craft your words. You can make the argument that you want people to be able to reference later. This is the lasting long-term content. Live streaming is your chance to be in the moment with your audience. Your chance to say, what are your questions? What are the things you care about? Why is this something that you're showing up for, and why is this something you need to show up more for? That dialogue, as human beings, we're social learners. We can learn by reading, we can learn by watching YouTube videos, not the live stuff, the recorded stuff. But at the end of the day, the most effective way to learn is to directly engage in content as both a conversation and through active learning, where you're watching things happen and, when possible, doing the experiments yourselves. Now, the average person can't launch a rocket in their backyard. The average person doesn't have access to an 8-meter telescope. And so through streaming, we can invite you to join us in learning this content, in being part of the process of science, and give you front row seats to things you might otherwise not be able to get access to. So you can see on our Twitch channel that we have done some lunch parties lately. We do record Astronomy Cast, which is unscripted. We record that one live because I've been writing software, like my life depended on it, because my paycheck depends on it. We haven't been streaming as much lately. We will get back to doing a whole lot more streaming, and I will get back to personally streaming. Yes, there will be art and book reading again. Broken, I know you're going to ask. I just need to get the software launched while we still have our grants. There is this thing going on right now where all of us who have federal funding are like, how much work can I do? How quickly while I still have my money? So yeah, that's a thing. That's a thing.
Yeah, and that does definitely bring up the next point, which is doing all of this with a quote unquote work-life balance, wearing all these hats while also trying to promote science and education. How do you manage that? Because I haven't figured it out, certainly.
There are times when I am more successful than others. What I have learned is Winter's much easier because I don't have to worry about weeds. The front flower bed of my house right now has weeds that are taller than I am, and I'm like perfectly average height. I just live someplace where like things just grow, except what you want to grow. Those things won't grow. That's the rule. Um, so it's a lot easier in winter when my yard isn't something demanding my attention. I don't know how people who have children pull off a day job, pull off streaming, pull off public engagement, and have a family. I luckily have a husband who has hobbies he deeply loves, and he views me being off doing something as a chance to eat food that I'm either very allergic to or just don't like. And so he can eat his stinky smoked oysters while I'm off doing streaming things and working too many hours. You have to have people in your life who support you and are accepting of ludicrous hours that will sometimes end up happening. This is just the way it is, unfortunately. The stream that you pulled up is the iSpace attempt to land that was actually yet another lander embedding itself into the surface of the moon on Thursday. We watched it together. At one point they went to, and this made me feel better as a streamer, they cut to video and forgot to turn the audio on for the videos. So we were watching videos for quite some time with zero sound. I felt good about my own failings with audio. Yeah, and we got to talk about why is it that we're currently seeing mission after mission impale itself into the moon, whereas somehow in the 60s they made it look comparatively easy. It was a good conversation, but it was the kind of thing that you do live, you don't do it pre-recorded. It was a good day, except for iSpace. It was a good day for the stream. It was a terrible day for iSpace. Our heart goes out to them.
Great day for content.
Yes, yes.
And, even a failing, it's still data. It's you still learn something. Make mistakes, get messy, as Miss Frizzle used to say. Maybe that's a reference my viewers will not get. They might be a little too young for that, which makes me feel old, but that's okay. It's going to happen to them too eventually.
Yes, it's true.
So you've had some great successes in streaming. I would like to hear, what do you think are some of your best moments in streaming educational content?
So the early days of Google Hangouts, back before YouTube Live, it started out with you could only have like 10 people in with you. And so it was like the first 10 people who got in, they were the ones who were there. And then they gave us access to unlimited, and we were working with Google to pilot this new technology. And we got a bunch of amateur astronomers who were willing to set up their, and this was like before OBS was any good. We're screen sharing things. We're trying to use Skype. Wirecast was really the only software that existed at this point. And Fraser Kane, my co-host from Astronomy Cast, he was the one who organized all of this. And he's pulling in through, I forget which video conferencing software. I think we were using Skype. No, we were using Google Hangouts. What am I saying? We were using Google Hangouts. He's pulling everyone in through Google Hangouts, trying to get their video out as well. And we were showing the world Saturn. And then Google was like, this is a good use of our technology. And they highlighted it during Google I/O. And here I was, baby professor. My students thought I was the weirdest thing on the planet. And Google was paying attention to what we were doing and supporting what we were doing and helping us grow. And we put a whole lot of energy into Google Plus, and then it failed terribly. And I'm still sad about that, because astronomy was doing great on Google Plus. Nothing else was, but we were. So yeah, there was that back in circa 2011. Then we all really started to get involved, and there was talk of Twitch EDU becoming a thing. Back in the early days, circa 2015 of Twitch TV, I guess that was 2017 of Twitch TV, where we were doing Space Week, and a whole bunch of the space streamers showed up at Twitch headquarters in San Francisco. It was an absolutely wild experience to get to be there in person on the cover of Twitch talking science and saying, come learn with us, come be part of learning on Twitch. And so these chances to collaborate, to create new technologies that allow anyone out there, unfortunately, you do have to be affluent enough to have the high-speed internet and to have the computer. But it still lowered the bar so much compared to having to pay for live streaming software in the past, from having to have webinar accounts for Zoom. Anyone who can afford the computer can now stream. And a lot of us who are scientists, the computers that we need to do our science are perfectly adequate for streaming. I tortured my streaming audience. Hi, I love you. I'm very sorry I did this, because I was running simulations on my computer for a colleague, and it turned out my computer was just like dropping every 10th frame and flashing green because I was running the simulation in the background. But I have this computer because of my high-tech skills, and it lets me stream, and that's amazing.
Yeah, and so since we're talking about a little bit about the history of education on Twitch, you were involved also with Brain Bites?
Yes. I actually am unable to leave Brain Bites. There's a bug in Twitch software where like the members of the team cannot unleave the team. So I am forever and always part of Brain Bites. And it was this early group of Twitch educational streamers. A lot of us came over from YouTube, came over from podcasting, and Twitch worked with us to help us build up our audiences and create this chance to engage as many people in learning as possible. Now, as with so many things, trying to meet all the partner requirements with science content while having day jobs, not all of us survived. But it led to graduate students seeing, hey, this is pretty amazing. And I don't know how many graduate students I've watched go from working on their PhD to becoming professional influencers, which honestly is a more stable job right now than being a federally funded government researcher. Influencers are a much stabler career. I never thought I would be saying that. But what we started with Brain Bites, with the Knowledge Fellowship, got all these people walking through the door and building this new way to take all the stuff that they put so many years of their life into learning, either through formal education or through passionate rabbit holing, and you can get just as good an education both places. One of them just requires more paperwork. Seeing all of
And a
these
lot
people
more money.
True.
to go to
It's
college.
true. I will be paying for my student loans for the rest of my life. True story. Seeing all of these people leverage their brains, especially during the pandemic when it mattered more than ever before, to build community for people who want to think. It's not often we see community built around, I want to use my mind. But that's what we have.
And I think that is, it is a trend, and a good trend, because it has to counter a different trend, which is the I did my own research type of crowd. And as you mentioned, the bar is so much lower now for getting into streaming and being an influencer. There are a lot of people out there giving misinformation, giving disinformation, who are not credentialed, who don't have true experience, who are just giving their opinions and vibes. And so it's all the more important if you are someone out there who, even if you have a little bit of knowledge about something, it's great to share it. People can learn from you, and we can learn from each other. So especially if you are interested out there, if you're watching and you are someone involved in some educational field, science, technology, medicine, whatever, why not take the chance? Your computer probably is good enough to stream. Trust me, I do it. So give yourself a chance. Maybe join the TKF and people can help you out with that. But yeah, there is that trend that has to be countered of people who are using it for less substantive purposes.
And I love the fact that with so many members of TKF, when you say, well, did you do your own research? They can say, well, yes, I walked up that volcano. I have actually taken lava samples. I have used that spacecraft. I have been in the laboratory. I have fought with that electron scanning microscope. It's a wonderful throwback. Every scientist lives for that moment of, I can say this because I have a PhD. And then explain why not everybody should be doing their own research. There are things I should not be doing my own research in that I have read passionately about. Epigenetics. I love epigenetics. Am I an expert in it? No. Can I talk at the Scientific American level about it? Yes. Can I be enthusiastic and tell you what to go read and then who to go talk to? Yes, if you're on social media. Yeah, it's a day where we need to understand not everyone can do their own research, and we need to learn to follow the people who do the actual research because they're awesome.
Yeah. I'm not a sleep researcher, but when I give a lesson on sleep and I talk about something and someone questions, well, that's not true. I say, well, click the button and the citation comes up on the screen because I didn't do the research, but I can look to the people who did and say, you've done this for 30 years. Why don't I let you speak for yourself and let the research, And
you have the educational background to be able to understand the research paper. I have the research background to read a lot of astronomy papers and then translate them to the public. I can't do that with research in every field. And so this is where each of us can leverage the education we have to take the results. And a lot of people writing those research papers should not be allowed to talk to the public. They really shouldn't. They need to keep doing that research and not talk to anyone other than other researchers. And that's okay.
That reminds me of how
we're here.
How some pro wrestlers, they're not very good on the mic, so they need a manager. They need a mic person. They need someone to do their talking and do the smack talking and stuff they do. You just do the wrestling. You're really good at that. You're not very good on the microphone. Let me get you a chauffeur, manager, or whatever they call them in pro wrestling. Yeah, science needs those people too. They need effective communicators, and the people who are really good at research are sometimes not always the best at that. They're, let's call it what it is, nerds. We're nerds sometimes.
And I'm never going to be a Nobel Prize winning researcher. I'm going to be someone who plugs away, mostly doing software development that enable people who shouldn't touch computers to do research. And all of the skill I have, getting to turn it into communicating science, I live to see what my science means to other people. I love seeing that moment where people are like, whoa, that's cool. It's reinvigorating to see the universe through other people's eyes.
It really is. And it keeps you as the scientist engaged and interested. When you see, people with the beginner's mind, as they would say in martial arts, getting something like, oh, wow, I remember what that felt like when I first got it.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm looking at chat and there's so much good stuff going on right now.
Yes, thank everybody. I appreciate everybody coming out and supporting educational, informational live streaming. I've always found it fascinating. I'm a VTuber. I find it incredible that people even 10, 15 people would show up on a random Saturday to watch a cartoon badger teach about cannabis and how it's affecting our brains. And because it used to be 3% THC in the 90s, so that cannabis you saw Bob Marley smoking in the 70s, compared to the 16, 17, 20% THC today, it's like it's from a plant from another world. But it's amazing that people will show up to watch Twitch, to watch educational content, when there's a billion videos on YouTube they could watch. They could be playing any video game. They could be watching any other streamer, but they're choosing to watch you. They're choosing to watch someone who is trying to teach them something interesting. So there is that crowd that is interested in learning.
It's an honor to have people show up. It's not everyone has that. We're lucky.
We really are, and I'm grateful that we have a subset of people in society that are really interested in learning, especially now as education can be getting more and more expensive, less and less likely to get grants or funding or scholarships.
Yeah.
It's more and more important that people share.
Yeah, we reach a global audience, and there's so many places that just don't have access to education. And the fact that we can reach people through their phone is empowering.
Yeah, they don't need a computer. The barrier for entry to watch and learn is also lower. Any smartphone now can watch a YouTube video about learning C++ and learn to code something. They could learn a lesson I would like to teach is just how to read an abstract. If the public had a better idea of just how to read the summary of a study, you don't need to know everything. You don't need to be an expert. But if you have enough literacy to understand what the summary of a study says, you'll be so much better off.
Yeah, this is all true. And yeah, if we could just get people to read, full stop, just read.
Well, the reading rates at the schools I've been in, it's a challenge. It's going to be tough, but we're doing what we can. Yeah.
One of my favorite things to get to do is, because I do a news show, Escape Velocity Space News, I go through and I read press releases from here to Kingdom Come, basically. And I'm not picky. I'm reading all the science press releases that are out on Eureka Alert. And I'll sometimes have the time to do that on stream and to just go through and be like, don't care, giraffes. And just like randomly take this moment to enjoy science that has nothing to do with anything that I've studied but is cool. And then just get to reflect on stuff as I click through. It's this moment where all of us get to see just how diverse the research going on at any given moment happens to be. Hopefully it will stay that way.
Yeah. And then there's the opportunity to collaborate with people in the streaming space. Yeah. Without this, I might have never gotten the chance to meet you and talk about all these fantastic topics and meet all the great TKF streamers that stream things that I don't know about and get the chance to teach about and learn from. And the viewers as well, I think, really appreciate that. Even if you're just playing a game, like a lot of us do, we also play games during streams. It's a bit of the parallel play, which even if you just get to listen to someone, and if I talk about something educational while I'm playing, they're still learning something. And it's still that engaging fun rather than just a lecture from a teacher.
Yeah, and sometimes you're gonna fail. I have yet to figure out how to get my Quest 3 to stream correctly. The audio just does not want to go through correctly. And so it has often ended up being me stream of conscious, killing fruit, playing Fruit Ninja in VR, talking to my audience. Yeah, it's a thing.
It is. I mean, we talked a little bit about play and play in general. Especially things that I've seen and research I've read, it's just kids need play and they need their education to be fun and engaging. And if it can be like the things that you're doing, young adults getting something out of mapping craters, it's something more than, again, watching a video that is pre-recorded and may or may not be from someone who has any experience or credentials.
Yeah, and one of the things that broke my heart and also filled me with joy, because sometimes both can be held in the same moment. A number of years ago, we did a survey asking, why are you using your spare time to help us map out planets? And we had people responding that they were on disability and it gave their days meaning, that they were retired and they were looking for something to contribute to. People have this desire to be part of something greater than just themselves. And from the conversations that we can have in our communities on Twitch, to the science we can do through citizen science, we are building a community that has meaning and can give people purpose. And it is surreal to me that it is so hard for people to find purpose sometimes. And it breaks my heart, but at the same time, there's so much joy in knowing I need people to map craters on the moon, and this is going to actually improve how someone gets through their day. I never expected that, but that's a reality that we've built as streamers. We've built a way for people helping each other learn, helping each other understand things, just supporting each other through the pandemic when time had no meaning. We've created something bigger than we are, and that's awesome.
Learning community is something I always say, rather than just, a classroom or whatever, try to build a learning community, people who are in it not just to learn themselves, but to help other people learn, play, teach, play, and peer teaching are things that we talk about at the K-12 level.
Yeah.
And that lack of purpose is such a big part of the loneliness epidemic that we talk about, especially in older people, which is a really big coming crisis. And what can we do to help? Well, learning is a lifelong process. And if you give people that purpose, it's going to go such a long way. I think the search for purpose is a lot of the reason why there are so many petty fights, so many small crusades that people make. They want to be a part of something. They see some small molehill, and that's the molehill they'll die on because they just want to be a part of something they think is important. Well, there's really important stuff out here that you can be contributing to that is beneficial to you, beneficial to your neighbor. The environmental stuff you were talking about, there's ash borer beetles around here on emerald something or other. Map those, count those, send that data in, be a part of that. Let's get rid of these invasive species around here. There's something that you can do out there, viewer, to help yourself and the rest of the world around you in your community.
And this is a fellowship. It's literally a knowledge fellowship. And that is something, in some ways, deeper than just community.
Absolutely. And I want to give you the space one more time to just let us know where people can find you, where they can see your content, the places you're streaming and such.
I am at StarStryder on pretty much all the social media, spelled with a Y, because I made mistakes in my 20s. But now I live with those mistakes, and I will be saying StarStryder with a Y for the rest of my life. So that's how you can find me. That's how you can find my personal Twitch channel. And then professionally, I am at CosmoQuest X, and you can join us for Astronomy Cast, Escape Velocity Space News, 365 Days of Astronomy, and so much more. And we will bring you on Monday first light images from the Vera Rubin Observatory down in Chile. This is the survey telescope that is going to change our understanding of everything that flickers, flares, and moves in the night. And if there is another large planet in our solar system, this is the telescope that will find it.
That is fantastic. So I think that is going to do it for our second session. This has been the Knowledge Fellowship Seminar Series, episode number 2, featuring our guest, Dr. Pamela L. for June 2025. I want to thank everyone who showed up and everyone who has been a part of the Knowledge Fellowship, all of the organizers, committee members, and everyone for welcoming me in and allowing me to be a part of this committee and to help out and to do this series. We're all grateful that you've chosen to spend time here with us, learning, connecting. I hope that we can see you in future seminars, future TKF events. If you are a TKF streamer and you're interested in being on the seminar, we would love to do that. I would love to bring in especially newer streamers, younger streamers, people who are just up and coming, trying to get started. We would love to feature you and help you get your content out there so that you can grow your community and grow this learning community on Twitch. My name is Mr. Aegis. I will continue to be your teacher for these sessions. We will look for here a raid target for our group for within TKF. I have to stop calling it our field trips because it's not field trips in this series. I always call them field trips when we go on my raids, but we're going to check out Shane McInnes. Thank you very much. Our mod E to the 2i Pi, a math streamer. You should check out them as well. You can get help with all of your math homework because I certainly can't help you with that. But we're going to take a raid to Shane McInnes. I want to thank again our guest, Dr. Pamela L. and all of you out there. We will see you all next time. We will have our guest, Tiny Toxic Tofu, another fantastic streamer. So we will see you in July. That's all we have for you today. Class dismissed.
Goodbye, everyone. We'll see you on the
Bye,
other
everyone.
side.